Okay, everyone, welcome to today's show, which is sponsored by Practical CBT, your route to great mental health. Today, we are finding out all about our new signing, Michel-Ange Balikwisha. We got a glimpse of him in the dire recent derby at Ibrox. He was all right, I would say. But we can find out more about him today because there's a fair amount that we don't know. Hopefully that changes on today's show when we chat to commentator Will Downing, who covers the Belgian Pro League for DAZN. Hello, Will. Thanks for coming on. A chat about Michel-Ange Balikwisha. How does that sound?
Cheers, Hamish. Yeah, why not? Sounds good to me. Thanks for having us on.
Tell us a bit about your story then, because you've been doing Belgian football for quite a while.
Yeah, more years than I care to remember. 2010 basically was when it started off. That was for what's now ESPN Africa. Then the World Feed came to Setanta, based out of Dublin. We did that for years and years. And then during COVID, it got taken over by what's now DAZN Belgium. They brought it back to Brussels. And then this is my sixth season working out of there each weekend. We do the main three games, highlights on a Monday. So we get to see all the best players, all the best action. But yeah, I've been doing it a long time now. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good league as well. It's doing well. We've been linked with a few players. We've obviously got Arne Engels, who played for Club Brugge. You maybe caught him a little bit in years gone by. But we were linked with quite a few players, I think, playing in Belgium. So quite a strong league at the moment.
Yeah, it happens quite regularly. And not just Scotland, but a lot of English clubs generally get linked with the best that Belgium has to offer. Bundesliga as well. Ohyun Gu had a move breakdown going to the Bundesliga just a couple of days ago. It timed out, sadly, on Monday night from his point of view. But yeah, it's a strong league. Like currently eighth in the coefficient. They've been parked there for a good few years, which means two clubs in the Champions League. The second placer has to qualify. The best team in the Europa League gets into the playoff round, so that's Genk this season. Generally, all five clubs, it's happened a good few times this decade, have managed to get past Christmas and stay in Europe all the way, which helps the coefficient a lot. They are targeting sixth spot if they can do that to climb above Portugal and the Eredivisie, but they've not been able to do it yet. And obviously, the prizes that are on offer for that, automatic spot, second spot in the Champions League, automatic place in the Europa League and the league phase. But it's been high quality since I've started. They've generally been knocking around eighth place. There was one season they fell down about a decade ago to 12th spot in the European coefficient. But, generally, they always have strong clubs in Europe. It is a strong league. Club Brugge, the champions, Yoni was, and Genk are still in Europe. So anybody who comes out of the league, having proven themselves in the league, is a good player. I think you've got that guarantee of quality, certainly.
Yeah, some well-run clubs in Belgium, and that's a bit of a debate we're having at the moment with regards to Celtic as maybe not being at the same kind of level as clubs like Club Brugge and Union Saint-Gilloise. Tell us about Michel-Ange Balikwisha then. When did you first come across him? Because I was looking through some of your tweets and I think they go all the way back to his time at Standard Liège.
Yeah, I'm afraid I do tweet a lot. That's something I have to deal with. But yeah, he broke through very, very young. Both him and his brother William had come through the youth setup at Anderlecht. They're both from Brussels. They're both from Molenbeek, which is right alongside where Anderlecht is. And there's a good club in Molenbeek as well, right in the southwest of Brussels. They both went to Standard Liège. I think from memory, actually, William went first and then Michel-Ange came later. Michel-Ange made his debut quite young for them, and then his career kind of stalled. He had a couple of years out of the side, in and out, a few injuries and so on. So then when William developed and looked as if he was going to be a very good player, and he's had a solid career since he left Standard Liège a couple of transfer windows ago. He's at Leuven now, who generally are kind of hovering above the relegation zone right now. Michel-Ange's career finally got going at Standard Liège, and then he did something that's actually quite unusual. He broke his contract after about 18 months in the first team. In the summer of 2021, he moved to Antwerp. You're allowed break a contract there under Belgian employment rules from a Footballer's point of view, it's generally your first professional contract. Some managers have done it. Felicia Massey did it, for example, when he moved from Union to Anderlecht a couple of years ago. But he went to Antwerp, who were kind of hovering. They made a big comeback in 2017. They'd been out of the top flight for 15 years. They came back up. They had some good money behind them from one of Belgium's richest men, the owner of Glamco, Paul Gaysons. They're the building company. And a few good managers. They were building up, like the top six generally play in the elongated title playoffs that we have in Belgium. So they were a good top six side. They were creeping into the playoffs. And then under Mark van Bommel, when he took charge in 2022, basically they went into overdrive. They were a lot better organized, and Balikwisha certainly paid the dividends of that. He's a good attacking player. He was in a good attacking side for a good few years. And unfortunately, last season, his career kind of hit a speed bump. He was out for a good few months, first half of the season, with an injury, hardly played before Christmas. Then he made his comeback, and he had a very good second half of the season, but Antwerp stalled a little bit, had quite a poor playoffs run. They finished fifth in the league eventually, but then they were beaten in the European playoff final, so they missed out on Europe altogether. They lost 5 of their 10 matches in the playoffs, where it's a bit like Scotland, the top 6 break away, and they play each other home and away. So there are 10 playoff matches, and Antwerp only won 2 of those. Now, he scored 5 goals in that time, but he only played around 16 games last season. His transfer value dipped a little bit. It's in a way, it's a kind of a surprise that he's gone to Celtic, and for the fee that he's gone for, which is around 6.5 million euros, or just under that, because he was rated as double that maybe a year ago before the injury problems hit.
So tell us about the injury stuff then, because I was having a look, and he did miss a lot of game time last season. I think it was a thigh injury, but maybe some other muscular stuff going on. Maybe the year before as well, some issues with his knee, hip stuff prior. It seems like he's had a lot of issues in recent years. Should we be concerned about that?
Possibly so. Like the first few years, as I was saying, he had hamstring trouble, bit of hip trouble. That was around 3-4 seasons ago. He seemed to get past that, but he hasn't really had a season, I think it's fair to say, since he turned pro, in which he hasn't had an injury that's had him out for at least a month. He had knee surgery right at the start of 2024. That had him out for a month and a half, but then he was able to play in their title run-in. I think one very important thing to point out is that the 6 months that he's had without an injury were the 6 months in which Antwerp had their big run-in to win the double for the first time in 2023, and he played a massive role in that. But it was a thigh muscle injury that had him out up until Christmas. Then there was a recurrence of a muscle injury. He hardly played really up to the start of March, but then he did manage to cram some games in and did have a good title run-in from his point of view, even if Antwerp didn't. But that is something that is affected in the past few seasons. It is something that has affected his transfer fee as well, because when he had that knee surgery and when he was past it, you'd have thought that the worst of his injuries were beyond him. But then other injuries come in, because it was the knee surgery that had him out for a bit, then it was thigh, then further muscle trouble. He's been okay basically for the last 6 months. He had a very good start to the season for Antwerp. They only lost for the first time last weekend when they were beaten by Westerlo. But by and large, I think it's something to be watched out for without a doubt, really.
Okay. Has it, I mean, you say he had a good start to this season. Has it affected the kind of player he is? I mean, has he kind of lost any pace? Does he look a bit kind of apprehensive that he's going to injure himself again?
No, I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, he's only scored 1 goal so far this season, but the kind of player he is, he's an attacking midfielder, if you like, just playing behind the front man or front men, usually on the left-hand side, but can veer across to the right. And he's the sort of player who makes things happen. And for very many years, Antwerp had a nice selection of attackers up front. They would score a good amount of goals. You had the likes of Vincent Janssen, who's still there, Girano Kirk, who he's able to link up with, who are players that are in their 30s now, to Jaron Cherry as well, likewise. He still looks the same sort of player to me. He doesn't look to me as if he's lost anything. When Antwerp have been playing badly, he might be accused of drifting out of games, but still you could consider him to be one of their better players in that time. He's not taken the foot off the pedal, I don't think. You wouldn't accuse him of not trying or anything like that. But Antwerp's form has been rocky the past couple of years. They've been through a few different managers as well. They've got a bit of additional stability this season, so they've got a chance maybe of a better shot at the title. And I think his performance has been quite good, really, as theirs have been. They played quite a few big games already this season. They drew with Union Saint-Gilloise and against Genk. He scored from the spot against Leuven, so I mean it's important to say he's not scored from play this season for Antwerp, but I didn't think he was having bad games or worse games than he had done the previous few seasons.
Okay, you mentioned, where he can play in the announcement article on the Celtic website. Brendan Rodgers very keen to point out he can play on both sides. He also said that about Sebastian Tenekti, a winger we signed from Hammarby. We seem to be stockpiling left wingers at the moment. I think we have possibly 4 or even 5 of our 6 wingers play on the left. So there is a feeling in the support that potentially, they're kind of playing up the ability of Balikwisha and Tenekti to play on both sides. Having watched him, what do you think? Is he a guy who can play on the right, or is he a left winger?
But he can play on the right. Usually we are seeing him on the left. There have been a few occasions when Antwerp have had an injury crisis or two and when they've had to play him up front, and it's not a role that he struggled with, I don't think, and they can stick him in the centre as well. But generally when we have seen him play, it's been on the left-hand side. It's where a lot of his creativity comes from. He's the sort of player who does track back. He will cover a lot of ground around the pitch. I think maybe that's certainly important. From Antwerp's point of view, in a league season in Belgium, because there are 6 or 7 teams who are competitive every season, they have got a lot more big games, toppers as they would call them, compared to what Celtic might have in the league. So your level of performance in those matches has to be quite high, has to be consistently high, and I think that's what you get from him. But usually it is on the left-hand side, and how well obviously he combines with some of the rest of the team. Antwerp, likewise, I think had quite a few different players who were very similar in terms of left and right attackers, and the different coaches that they've had the past few seasons, the likes of Van Bommel, the likes of Jonas de Ruyck, Steph Wills, who's in charge now. It's like moving the chess pieces around the table a little bit. Sometimes Girano Kirk will be up front and he'll play deep. Balikwisha, they've tended to move around a little bit, but I still think the left-hand side is where he's brought his best performances.
So Balikwisha came to us in 2021 for back then a record transfer fee, and after a hefty battle with Club Brugge for the signature, so expectations were pretty high amongst fans. And I think in those 4 years it's been a bit of a mixed bag. He scored some very important goals for us. He scored in a cup final. He scored and assisted in a game that got us into the Champions League for the very first time. He was, of course, part of our title-winning team in 2023, which will forever be treasured by every fan of Antwerp. But he's also had some, injuries at bad times in his career. He always needs a little bit of time before he can get back into shape, back into form after those injuries. He's had about 50 goals and assists in about 150 games, so not amazing, also not bad. But yeah, he had a good reputation in the dressing room. He had a great link with the fans as well. He was very happy to be at Antwerp, I think. In the dressing room, he was known for guiding younger players, even though he's been a young player himself. When he was at Antwerp, but young academy players coming into the first team, he was always there for them, always ready to help. So I think in that case, he will be great at Celtic as well, I think. He's not the type of winger to do 10 step overs or beat his man purely on pace. He's more of a passing winger, cut inside, shoot the goal, try to find the assists, stuff like that. So if you're expecting him to go on the outside, beat his man on pace, you'll be a little bit disappointed. But But yeah, I think he'll do well at Celtic. I'm guessing he's going to need some time to get into the flow. He has been playing at Antwerp, but still, I think he'll need a little bit of time to adjust to a different league, different team. But I think most fans will be happy to have him, even though at some points he'll probably be disappointed in how he performs. But still, I think when you look at his overall playing style, you could never say he's a lazy player. His defensive work rate is amazing. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he didn't score or assist as much as maybe we wanted throughout those years. He's always ready to fight for the team. He can play on the left or in that central number 10 position as well if needed. So yeah, I hope you'll be happy with him, and I'm guessing a lot of Antwerp fans will keep an eye on him throughout the years at Celtic.
Hell of a debut for him, it should be said, going to Ibrox and starting that game with all that's going on at Celtic, and it doesn't come any bigger for us than starting that game. So he did okay. I thought he was comfortable in possession. I would have liked to see him run at his fullback a little bit more. I felt he was a bit safe, but again, you factor in it was his debut, maybe a bit of nervousness there. Are we going to see more direct play from him going forward?
Yeah, he's the sort of player who likes taking on defences. It might take him a bit of a while to get to grips with all the different clubs in Scotland. But I mean, what I would say comparing the two leagues is that, quite regularly, Belgium would have more clubs capable of getting into the group stage in Europe than Scotland would, and going beyond that. So I think it's a level that definitely will suit him. I think there's not much doubt about that. I think he will enjoy taking on the average Scottish Premiership defence, if you know what I mean, and perhaps some of the better ones too. Also, the Belgian league is quite physical, along the same lines as Scotland, along the same lines as England. So he can certainly look after himself. The injuries that we touched on earlier, you would think that is probably the biggest question mark against him. But in terms of overall performance, to me, it's not something that's really ever affected him. But
okay.
I think he can definitely prosper in Scotland.
Good. Just kind of quickly, just paint a picture of what kind of winger he actually is. Is he the kind of guy who's going to dribble at his fullback? Is he the kind of guy who's going to knock it inside and then try and get a 1-2? What kind of winger are we going to see here?
It depends on the rapport that he has with the other attacking players at Celtic. He is a player who loves taking others on, have the ball at his feet and run with it and beat players and either whip in a shot or try and whip in a cross. With some of the players that I've already mentioned from an Antwerp point of view, they've all generally tended to link up very, very well. They've all understood each other's play quite well. Janssen and Kirk, for example, they've been in the side together as a unit up front for around 3 years or so. Others have come in and gone out, but he's always been there. Mahamadou Doumbia broke in, for example, in the past year or so. Now he's off to Saudi Arabia for 18 million. And I would have thought that Balikwisha would be on the same level as him. It's an entirely different choice of direction in terms of league that Balikwisha's decided to go to, and maybe a different kind of paycheck as well. But I can definitely see him being, in a Scottish point of view, in a Scottish Premiership point of view, a real crowd pleaser, taking players on, beating them, and then going for goal. That's tended to be what he's done a lot in the Pro League, in my experience over the few years that I've seen him. But there is a nice, quick, tight interchange, quick passing that Antwerp have been capable of doing up front as well. They're also a side who like to shoot from outside, or certainly the past few years, they had a couple of additional players there who had that ability, and Doumbia probably in the last year was top of the pile there, but he's gone to Saudi Arabia. I'm going to be very interested to see how he just combines with the 3 or 4 main attackers that Celtic would have on the pitch on a game-by-game basis. I didn't get to see the derby last weekend because I was doing a big game at the same time. Ghent were playing Club Brugge, but a friend of mine's a big fan, and he was saying he did he did okay. Some of the reports afterwards may not have been, hugely glowing or positive, but I he's been at Antwerp for 4 years. He's been in that same environment. He's had a little bit of international football. So this is an entirely new surroundings for him, which he'll probably have to get used to. But I think there's potential for him to definitely be involved in a few goals the next few weeks.
Hopefully that's the case. You mentioned Antwerp, but I think you covered it wasn't his final game, but it was the derby against Mechelen when he got his kind of farewell to the Antwerp fans. So it seemed like they absolutely loved him and loved what he did for the club.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big city, but it's quite a tight-knit city as well. You've got two big clubs. There's Antwerp and there's Vierkante, but Vierkante, for a lot of the time in the past few years, have been in the second division. So they've got a massive amount of support. They enjoyed the double for the first time 3 seasons ago now. He played a really big role in that. And they loved him. And he missed the Mechelen game because news was coming through that he may well be on his way to Celtic. I know some people have said that, is he going to try and use Celtic as a stepping stone to get into the Premier League? Probably there's 2 words you could say that would refute that, which is Senna Lamens. You can very easily leap from Belgium to England. Watching Match of the Day most Saturday nights when I'm over in Belgium, I'm amazed at the amount of players who are cropping up who played in Belgium, who've either gone directly or who went via Serie A or the Bundesliga, let's say. But he was definitely a fan favourite. He's the sort of player who always puts effort in. You would never accuse him of slacking. There might be a couple of attacking colleagues that he'd have had the past few years that accusation would have been put against, but I don't think anybody ever queried, his commitment to Antwerp. And he was there a long time. Like, he was into his 5th season with them. A lot of the time in Belgium, once you hit your 3rd season, you're beginning to look around, whether it's moving to an even bigger club in Belgium or moving somewhere like, the Eredivisie or the Bundesliga, or in this case, to Celtic. I don't think people have to worry about his commitment. I don't think people have to worry about his quality. Injuries, maybe, but he's an exciting player. I think he was definitely one of the best players in the league, one of the best attacking players in the Pro League that we've seen, over the past 5 years.
Good. Very glad to hear it. The final comment, I don't know if you caught this, but he's recently declared for DR Congo. So that's where he's going to be playing his international football. And they've got the African Cup of Nations in December. So it seems like he'll be heading off to that.
Yeah, his dad's from there as well. And his brother declared for them too. He has played for the Belgian under-21s. It's kind of a problem that Belgium have. There's a lot of really good talent that comes through who are of, Congolese heritage or Moroccan or Algerian. In the case of Konstantinos Karaitsis, who's with Racing Genk, he declared for Greece earlier in the year. And it changes people's perceptions in a way, not so much inside Belgium, but outside. So Karaitsis is now Greek, even though he said himself he doesn't feel any less Belgian than he ever did before. He's from Brussels, for example. There's a Chile international as well, Mael Mesatu, who's always lived in Belgium. He's from Brussels, but his mother's Chilean. But, people just look at his basic stats and say, oh, he's a guy from Chile, and then presume he came from Universidad de Chile or something like that. Yeah. But it'll put him in good standing. It's an excellent, as we all know, quality and standard of international football. And there are a lot of the DRC international team who play in Belgium anyway. So, maybe his family had a little word with him. Do you feel like, playing for them now? Rudy Garcia, the Belgian national team boss, has been very good in rewarding the better players from the Belgian Pro League in getting spots in the Belgian national team since he took charge in the summer, or a few months before that. Hans van Aken and so on. The 2 previous bosses, Tedesco and Roberto Martinez, would only play good young players. And Balikwisha was never really in that horizon, I'm afraid to say. So I think it's a good move from his point of view to declare for the DRC. He should be a regular call-up for them, if not necessarily a regular starter. That depends, I suppose, on club level and how he's doing in the individual games for the DRC. But probably it's a wise move, because if he were to declare for Belgium, it's hard to know how many caps he would eventually end up getting there are a lot of good players you can go through the years. And Mehdi Carcella, who was very good at Standard Liège, only played about 5 or 6 times for Belgium. And then he ended up declaring for Morocco and ended up playing in a whole load of major tournaments for them. So I'm afraid to say probably it is the right decision that he's made there in terms of his international future. It should help him. And depending how long he's at Celtic, 3 or 4 years, at the very least, you would hope, should help Celtic too.
Hopefully, yeah. Arne Engel's struggling with the Belgium stuff at the moment as well. So yeah, that's interesting. I was looking at DR Congo's squad. We've got a lot of players people would know. Johan Risa, who's just signed for Newcastle, and a number of other kind of familiar names. So he's not guaranteed a game for them either. You've been a fountain of information. Well, if you get anything else to impart on us on Balikwisha before we head?
Well, all I can say is try and keep him fit as best as possible. Don't wrap him in cotton wool, but try and keep him fit, and he will deliver.
Good stuff. That's a great way to finish. Well, it's been amazing to have you on. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Hamish. Thanks very much.
Great stuff, everyone. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you feel you know a bit more about Balikwisha now. We'll head off and I'll chat to you soon.